Well, this is a response video to Red Rocket. Yeah, I don't know where you're going. I guess I don't. I didn't. I haven't listened to all your videos, so maybe this is, the range. We just talk forever about philosophy that's, to me, obscure and convoluted, and it doesn't make life simpler. It makes it more complicated. It's just, let's just come up with a bunch of phrases that don't mean anything and a bunch of mushy words, and it just, whatever. The one line that really finished me off here was bridging the gap between religion and science. I just, what does that mean? What? No, we know what the gap between religion and science is. The gap is complete bullshit on one side and sincere investigation to learn the truth on the other. I mean, there's no gap to bridge here beyond just calling religious people what they are: retards. Self-imposed retardation. That's what religion is. Okay? I mean, it's, faith, come on, as a concept, it's ludicrous. Yeah, belief without reason. Yeah, oh great. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. No, so there's no gap to be bridged here. None. All right? Unless you want to contrive, unless obviously religion creates a very romantic and interesting reality. Okay? It makes us purposeful and meaningful. And if that's what science's job is now, is it is supposed to find or contrive or make up, a rationale that gives us a purpose and meaning. Is that what the objective is now? It's not to find the truth. The truth isn't some real thing. It isn't, it isn't built on facts and relationships about, between real words. I mean, I can say liquid water is wet, and it's an undeniable truth because the word wet was invented to describe water. And every word has its invention point. Okay, they're all meant to mean something specific, and yeah, certainly meanings can change, but the point is they have a meaning, and the meaning doesn't come from magic land. It comes from our learned relationships. That's what it's that context thing again. Okay, so but all the words are related in a sense because they all build on each other and create each other. But it's a finite universe. Language is finite. It isn't this. There's nothing. There's no reason to make it more complex than it needs to be. And you're just wallowing in all this jargon that just what. It just doesn't mean anything. Half of what you look, won't even bother quoting these paragraphs because half of them are incomprehensible. I mean, you just can't mix words like, spirit and soul and mystical, and then talk about science. They're not compatible. I mean, a real scientist tries to avoid words like even spontaneous because it really doesn't have meaning in any scientifically literate world. This is a word from the past. It's from the ignorant past. All right, now we're educated, we have more knowledge, we know that some of these words have no meaning anymore. Okay, and you're just, like I said, you're turning science into a religion, or bending it into one, and I don't see the point in doing that. I don't see the point in conceding that there's something about the brain we can't eventually know. I mean, I think it's pretty clear. It's a processor. You don't like the computer analogy? Well, look, it really doesn't matter the exact mechanics. I mean, yes, obviously, I don't know. It's going to take us a while to know the exact mechanics because it's very hard to, reverse engineer a brain. Okay, a working, living brain. So yeah, it's not going to be that easy to sit there and figure out exactly the mechanics of every impulse that goes traveling through this thing. And we couldn't even, look, realistically with new computers, it's hard to even do that with them. I mean, it's hard to trace every little, impulse, electric impulse going through you know, a CPU with a billion connections in it. But anyway, whatever. I just you know, it just irritates me. You're highly intelligent, obviously. Obviously, you're very well read. Obviously, you have a great capacity to comprehend what you've read. And it just seems all wasted because it's all this mush about shit. And what does any of this crap mean? I mean, why this need to adulterate the you know, the truth? Why do we have to make the truth more than it is? I mean, we don't know the answers to a lot of questions. We do know a lot of stuff. We know where we came from. We know we are basically ignorant animals. I mean, look, you know, what's that? The mysterious gas? Is it some kind of, you know, God? Or is there a scientific explanation? Just some reflected light, you know? I mean, why make it more complicated? Because we need to make it more complicated? Because we like it more complicated? That's the direction you seem to tend. I'm trying to find a simpler way to understand ourselves, and you're trying to find a more complicated way. You know, in my opinion, you want 10 zillion words to describe something. I'm looking for 10. You know, let's cut to the chase. And well, whatever. It's just irritating because, like I said, you're obviously intelligent. I just see that as being wasted. I mean, we have to find better ways of understanding, no doubt. We have to you know, devote time to understanding interrelationships to see what is connected to what. But I don't see any point in going any further than we need to, in terms of, if we understand enough to draw a conclusion that's significant, then you move on to the next thing. You know, you don't waste time on detailing, you know, the irrelevant. It's like, you know, the evidence of evolution is pretty substantial and dramatic. Certainly, yeah, over time we can detail more of it, but I don't know how much energy would be worth devoting to that pursuit, because we've already detailed enough of it. And now it's time to figure out what the consequence of that is. And you know, a few thousand years ago, you know, where were human beings? I mean, they were frigging animals. They weren't having you know, mystical connections with things. They weren't doing any of that kind of crap because they didn't have a language, and they didn't have a capacity to exploit the available intelligence they had. So there's other animals that are in a similar situation, except it appears they're not capable of the language thing. Apparently that was a big step in our evolution. Language was really important. And so there isn't any other candidates ready for that. At least we haven't been able to teach them a language, you know, significantly. And you know, but what's 4 billion years of evolution? Life was living on this planet, you know, in some sort of unmystical, very crude and very harsh, real world where things lived and died and suffered. And yeah, they had some fun once in a while, but most of it was hard living. And you know what? Because people weren't around, it didn't mean anything. I mean, something only means something when a human being contemplates it. No, I don't think that's the truth. I don't think our feelings are significantly more significant now than they were 10,000 years ago. I mean, being afraid 10,000 years ago, it wasn't that much different than being afraid today. I mean, obviously, we can do it more complexly. We can have more complex fears. We can be afraid of more complex things, but the emotion itself is no different. Pain was no different. Suffering was no different. I mean, it did have a different context, but it really wasn't substantially different in any relevant or meaningful way. And so when man was wandering around ignorant of all this mystical crap, did it all mean nothing? Well, anyway, I didn't do this as well as I thought I would hope, but whatever.